Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back or welcome to Sports All Week. In this video, we will be going over my 2023-2024 NBA standings predictions. If you're new here, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Stay till the end to see who I have making the playoffs and who I see having the best record in the NBA. These rankings will look at conferences and not divisions. So starting in the East, in 15th place I have the Detroit Pistons. They have some promising parts in Thompson and Cunningham, as well as Bogdanovich to provide some much needed scoring to this team. However, this team is super young and inexperienced. Besides Bogdanovich, 4 out of their 5 starters were drafted after 2019. Detroit has a good foundation, and I think that they will continue to get better as the season progresses, but I still think that they will finish in last. Finishing in 14th place, I have the Washington Wizards. Because of losing Beal, I think this team will take a step back. I think Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma can be a fairly decent duo in this league, but not nearly enough to get Washington close to a playoff spot. They simply do not have the team to compete this year. Maybe in a few years with good drafting, they can become a decent team, but for now, they are a mediocre group at best and will miss the playoffs by a sizable margin. Next up, we have 13th, and I think the Orlando Magic will take this spot. Orlando surprisingly has a fairly decent team. Players like Fultz, Wagner, and Carter, a pretty good bench, and a star in Banchero. To be honest, I think the other teams in the East are just better. Orlando can very easily sneak into a play-in spot, but I think the teams above them will outperform them, and Orlando will ultimately finish in 13th. In 12th, we have the Charlotte Hornets. I really hope I'm wrong about this because I like Charlotte, and it would be nice to see LaMelo play in the playoffs. Unfortunately for the entire team, a certain player by the name of Miles Bridges is too worried about assaulting his girlfriend to care about playing basketball. With Bridges playing, this team could easily be a play-in lock, but for some people, they don't get everything that they want. Just like last year, not having Bridges will hurt this team, and they will once again miss the play-in. Moving on, I think the Indiana Pacers will finish in 11th. Halliburton and Turner are a great duo, and they have a great supporting cast for those two. But just like I said for Orlando, there are simply better teams in the East. I definitely think Indiana will be a competitive team and will be in the playoff race until the end, but I do think they will come up just short and finish the season in 11th place. Reaching a play-in spot and finishing in 10th, I have the Toronto Raptors. They do have good players, don't get me wrong, but nothing about this team really excites me. Losing Van Vliet for nothing sucks, and Schroeder will be a decent replacement, but in my opinion, Fred is easily better. This offseason, Raps fans were mostly hooked on the Damian Lillard propaganda, and now that it didn't happen, most of them are left not feeling the greatest. Hopefully Barnes can bounce back and Siakam can have another good season, but even with that happening, I still think Toronto will be a mediocre team. Finishing in 9th, I have the Chicago Bulls. Losing Lonzo again and having to use Alex Caruso and his shiny bald head as your starting point guard is less than ideal, but this team still has the roster to easily clinch a play-in spot. They still have a good starting lineup with players like Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic, but I think Lonzo still being out will prevent this team from reaching their full potential. Coming in 8th place, I have the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets will have a point drop-off from last year due to the departures of KD and Kyrie, but I still think that they will be a play-in team. Mikal Bridges emerged as a star last year after the trade from Phoenix, and hopefully Ben Simmons can finally start making some threes. Dinwiddie can be a good complementary piece, and they have good bench players like Thomas and Finney-Smith. Their team is actually fairly good, and I think at the end of the season they will finish in 8th. Next up in 7th place, I have the Atlanta Hawks. This team is very good at putting the ball in the hoop. They have a very well-rounded starting 5, and Trae Young is a star. Their defense is a bit shaky, but I still think that they can easily secure 7th in the East. Moving on to 6th and clinching an actual playoff spot, I have the New York Knicks. Brunson and Randall are great scorers that can win this team games by themselves. RJ Barrett will hopefully continue to improve this season, and they have other decent pieces like Quentin Grimes and Josh Hart. I think this team will have another strong regular season and make the playoffs once again. In 5th place and winning the Southeast Division, I have the Miami Heat. Led by Jimmy Butler and his emo haircut, Miami has a really good team. A fantastic defender in Bam, assist machine in Kyle Lowry, and the man who survived every possible trade rumor, Tyler Hero. If we're being serious though, guys, can Miami management please give this guy a break? Like every offseason, he's supposed to be like the cornerstone piece in acquiring a top player, and it just never happens. Like, just let this man have some peace. Anyways, I think Miami has a really good team, and I can see them improving from last year and finishing in 5th. Coming in 4th place, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. This team has an insane backcourt, good rotation, and just a good team in general. I do feel bad for them though, considering that they have to put up with Tristan Thompson and his 5 million cheating scandals. Besides that, I think this team is simply too good to finish any lower, but there are still teams better than them, which is why I have them finishing in 4th. Beginning the top 3, I have the 76ers finishing in 3rd. Their starting power forward was born during the dinosaur age, and James Harden hates the people that run the team, but I still think that won't stop Philly from finishing high in the standings. Embiid is usually an MVP finalist every season, and they also have fantastic players like Maxey and Harris. This team has so much firepower, and I think it will show in the standings as the 76ers finish in 3rd once again. Finishing in 2nd and winning the Central, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. The Dame trade was sort of confusing for me. Having Dame and Giannis will be a crazy duo, but you really needed him so much that you had to trade Drew Holiday. I'm not sure if Dame's offense will make up for the defense that Holiday provided, but I'm sure time will tell. Also, I want to know how it was reported that Dame was only willing to go to Miami, and then he just gets traded to Milwaukee. Quite literally, the polar opposite of Miami. Are the reporters just idiots, or did Portland management just simply not listen to Dame's request and traded him anyways? Nobody knows, but I still think him and Giannis will pop off and the Bucks will finish in 2nd. And finally, winning not only the Atlantic Division but the Eastern Conference as a whole, I have the Boston Celtics. Where do I even start with this team? I love the addition of Tingus Pingus. The Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies trade was alright, but then replacing him with Drew Holiday is a fantastic move. Boston already had a top 5 defense in the league. Adding Porzingis and Holiday, this team is going to be so scary. I think they will dominate the league and easily finish in 1st in the East. Now we go to the West, where I have the Spurs finishing in last place. This team is atrocious. Obviously, the main thing this season is how Wembanyama performs. Besides him and a few other players, this team doesn't have very much to look forward to. Their defense is horrible, their offense is horrible. They are just horrible. This team will not win very many games, which is exactly why I have them finishing in last. In 14th place, I have the Utah Jazz. They had a hot start to the season last year, which is why they finished slightly higher last year, but I don't see that happening again. Jordan Clarkson is really the only remotely decent part about this team. This team is honestly super boring, and there's absolutely nothing interesting about them. They won't do very well this season, which is why I have them finishing in 14th. Next up, we have 13th, and I think it will be the Houston Rockets. This team made some moves trying to be more competitive, but it still won't be enough for them to make the play-in. Hopefully, Jabari Smith Jr. can improve this season, as well as Jalen Green. Fred VanVleet will provide some good mentorship, and Dillon Brooks was surprisingly fantastic in the FIBA World Cup. If Brooks can worry about playing basketball and not trash-talking every single player in the league, that would most definitely benefit the team. I still think this team won't be competitive and will ultimately finish in 13th. Moving on, in 12th place I have the Portland Trail Blazers. I like their return from the Dame trade and their team is actually pretty good. Scoot Henderson looks outstanding, and Sharp will continue to progress. If Portland keeps this team together and their rookies continue to improve, in a few years I think this can be a playoff team, but for now I have them finishing in 12th. In 11th place and missing the play-in, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. This team looks good on paper, but I think their relationships with one another are not very great. Rudy Gobert loves fighting his teammates while on the bench, and that won't help anybody at all. Anthony Edwards and Cat are fantastic players, but their horrible chemistry and just very average defense will be their kryptonite in my opinion, and in result they won't make the playoffs. Clinching a play-in spot and finishing in 10th place, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. They have a very well-rounded team with players like McCollum, Ingram, and Valanciunas. If Zion can finally have a full healthy season, I think the Pelicans can make a deep run in the playoffs. Their defense needs improvement and their bench can be better, but I think they can clinch a play-in spot and finish 10th in the West. Next up, I have the Dallas Mavericks finishing in 9th. Losing Christian Wood is going to suck, but hopefully Derek Lively can pick up his slack. They have an incredible backcourt with Kyrie and Luka, but everything else is average at best. If Luka and Kyrie can come to a realization that they both can't have the ball at the same time, then the Mavs can easily outscore their problems. If not, there will be a major problem in Dallas. I see them finding a way to both score and Dallas ultimately finishing in 9th. Moving on, In 8th place, I have the OKC Thunder. SGA proved that he was a superstar last year, and also solidified that trade from the Clippers was one of the worst trades in recent memory. If Josh Giddey can take another step and Chet Holmgren can play basketball without hurting himself, this team will be scary. With that being said, I still think OKC will finish the season in 8th place. In 7th place, I have the team that traded SGA away, that being the Los Angeles Clippers. It sounds like Kawhi Leonard might finally stop taking days off and play basketball games this season. Russ showed signs of competent basketball last playoffs, but a backcourt of him and Paul George is a very hit-and-miss backcourt. They are either extremely hot or can't make a shot to save their lives. I like their bench players, and Zubac is a serviceable center. I think other good teams will play the Clippers into a play-in spot, but I still have them finishing in 7th nonetheless. Finishing in 6th place, I have our glorious king LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. I honestly don't know what rituals LeBron does to stay this good or in this kind of shape, but they're clearly working. I see him having another strong season, as well as players like Russell and Reeves. The Lakers do have to play at the disadvantage of knowing that Anthony Davis can get hurt by simply getting out of bed, but that's why they got Christian Wood. The Lakers will continue to build off their play from last season, and that's why I see them finishing in 6th. Winning the Southwest Division and finishing in 5th, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. I like the Marcus Smart trade. They have a pretty good front court and a good bench. If Ja Morant would stop trying to get arrested, I would have this team higher. But since he enjoys showing guns on live streams and getting suspended, I have the Grizzlies in 5th. Coming in 4th place, I have the Sacramento Kings. They have a good duo with Fox and Sabonis, as well as Huerter and Barnes to help them out. Hopefully Murray can continue to improve. If their defense can continue what they did last year and their offense can score, this team will have a good season and finish in 4th. Beginning in the top 3, I have CP3 and the Warriors finishing in 3rd. That trade was so unbelievably unnecessary, but hey, I'm not the GM of any basketball team, and I'm sure they know a bunch more than what I do. The Splash Bros have definitely gotten better with the addition of Paul, and in my opinion, they have one of the best rotations in the league. If Wiggins and Green can get rebounds and defend well, I think this team will have a very good season. Finishing in 2nd place and winning the West, I have the Denver Nuggets. Denver really didn't do much this offseason, but they didn't have to on account of they just won the NBA championship. They have a really well-rounded team with players like Murray, Porter Jr., and Gordon. Jokic will be upset about not being in Serbia with his horses, which will cause Denver to struggle to begin the season. But once he figures it out, Denver will turn back into a juggernaut. And finally, winning the West and finishing in 1st is the Phoenix Suns. I mean, this team is just unbelievable, man. Beal and Booker in the backcourt, KD doing KD things, and Nurkic grabbing all those rebounds. This team honestly doesn't have a weakness. As long as KD, Booker, and Beal can share the ball with one another, this team will be unstoppable. In terms of the best record in the NBA, I think the Boston Celtics will win that honor. Like previously stated, this team is simply too good. The additions of Porzingis and Holiday will pay off tremendously for Boston and ultimately give them 1st place in the league. And there you have it, my 2023-2024 NBA standings predictions. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me if you agree with my predictions or not. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch my videos, and I will see you all again very soon.